How to install new rotors on a Corvette C6. Starting with the front, use a tire iron to loosen the 5 lug nuts holding the wheel on. Don't remove them, just loosen them slightly. Loosen the lug nuts till they can be turned by hand but are still holding the wheel on. After this, get a jack and raise the car up. Slide a jack stand underneath close to the wheel you're going to swap out first. Here's a very helpful diagram as to where to place the jack stands. Once your car is on the jack stand, remove all 5 lugs completely and pull the wheel off and set it aside. We need to remove the bracket and the caliper, total of 4 bolts per wheel. The first step is to remove the 2 bolts shown here by the red arrows. These are holding on your brake caliper. Using a 15mm socket or wrench, unscrew the top and bottom bolts. There's an 18mm nut just in front of it that holds it in place. This sometimes spins freely, preventing it from loosening. Use a wrench or some small pliers to hold it in place while you unscrew the 15mm bolt. Once you're loosening the last bolt, the brake caliper will start to come loose. Be sure not to let this fall, keep one hand on it or have a friend help you. Once both bolts are out, the brake caliper should be able to slide off. It might be held on there with a bit of pressure from the brake pads, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Once the brake caliper is free from the rotor, set it on top of something like a small box, that way it doesn't cause any undue tension on the brake line. The next step is to remove the bracket, which is held on by 2 21mm bolts shown here. These are torqued on very tightly and will not come off easy. Using a 21mm socket or wrench, remove the top and bottom bolts from the bracket. Now from the factory, these are put in with a light adhesive on, so it will take a bit of torque and patience to get them off. If it helps, I actually used a compact tire iron to help break the tension. Once both bolts are removed, the bracket will simply slide off, and now all that has to be done is to pull the rotor off of the wheel hub. Spray some WD-40 onto the rotor to help free it from the wheel hub. While this wasn't on mine, there are some that have small retaining clips on them holding the rotor on. Simply remove these with a screwdriver and slide the rotor off of the car. While you have the brakes completely off, this is a great time to check the wheel bearings and clean off a lot of the buildup that may be on your wheel hub and suspension arm. A little cleaning can really make quite the difference. Now we simply reassemble it in the same order we took it apart. Start by sliding your new rotor onto your wheel hub. The retaining clips aren't really necessary to be put back on, but if you want to, you can. The next step is to reinstall the bracket. Slide the bracket into place and screw in the bolts that you removed earlier. Start by hand tightening both bolts on and then use your ratchet or wrench to tighten it down fully. Try tightening them at the same pace, that way everything fits together nice and evenly. Now, these need to be torqued on to 129 foot-pounds, so an impact wrench may make this easier. Also, be sure these are on tightly. Do not cut corners and be lazy when you're working on your damn brakes. It's like the most important part of the whole car. Once the bracket's reinstalled, slide the brake pads back into the bracket and slip the caliper over the brake pads. These should go on pretty easily and shouldn't need to be compressed if you didn't change the pads. With the caliper in place, reinsert the 2 15mm bolts from earlier using the same method we used before, hand tightening them down and then using a ratchet to tighten them down evenly and firmly. These need to be torqued to a much more manageable 23 foot-pounds, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Before continuing, ensure that your brake caliper is on very firmly. After this, simply slide the wheel back on, reinstall all 5 lug nuts, and you're all done. The procedure is the exact same for both the front and the rear rotors, so you won't find any hidden surprises when you go to remove them. Once you're finished with everything, however, be sure to firmly push the brake pedal down a few times to make sure the system is pressurized correctly. And that's all there is to it. Hopefully this helped some of you guys out. If it did, be sure to leave a like, that really does help me out. I installed some of the brake motive slotted and drilled rotors. I've been using them for quite some time without any problems, so I really recommend them if you're looking at them. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more, and thank you very much for watching.